Okay, so Parent Talk is an event that we do each year. So it's just like trainings as you've participated in, Janet. We do this for parents. It's a class that we have amazing speakers come and talk about topics that they're interested in, that they've requested, and just really an opportunity for parents to get to know each other and kind of reflect with one another with the challenges of parenting, the joys of parenting, techniques that they can share to one another. So this season, we've been really trying to focus on what's going on right now. Like there's a lot of stuff going on with families, with ourselves, with the kids. And so everybody's tired. We're burnt out, right? And so tonight we're really excited to welcome Woodrie Burich, who's going to talk about self-care and nourishment and being resilient, especially in difficult times. So we have a pretty awesome Parent Talk season going on, which is really exciting. We've got, it's the second Thursday of each month from October through June. And so we're still finalizing the calendar for that, but the sessions that we have already set up are going to be really awesome. And I'm really excited to share more about that later. So as I shared, this session tonight is actually being recorded. You don't have to have your video on. In fact, if you want to turn it off, feel free. But as I shared, it is being recorded. We'll have you guys, if you guys can keep yourselves on mute throughout this session, that'll just help with the communication of the presenter as Woodrie's sharing, so there isn't a lot of background noise. Feel free if you have questions or comments, if you want to give like a, oh my God, yes, I've experienced that, feel free to share it in the chat. I've got the chat box open as well. So if you have questions that come through, I can also field those to Woodrie towards the end of this session as well. Hi, Martha. Great to see you. And again, like I shared, the questions will be shared at the end. We've got about 10 minutes. So as you are listening and you have different questions, feel free to write them down so we can bring them up with Woodrie at the end. This is just our media consent that we have for any of our recorded trainings. It's just a notice that this this session is being recorded so that we can use it for later use on our Thread website. So if you feel like you need some more reminders of what was that one thing Woodrow talked about for self-care, we'll have this available on our Thread website as well as the YouTube channel that we're creating for just Parent Talks, which is going to be really exciting, as well as like other people who you think could benefit from this session. You can share this recording with them. So again, just by attending this event, we are recording the session, and that's just kind of a heads up that this is happening. So again, I'm going to switch it over to Woodrie Burich. She is from the integration group and has been a good friend and colleague and support and mentor over the last 3 to 4 years since I've known her. She came to Thread and gave an amazing presentation on self-care that really resonated with myself. And I've used these practices all throughout ever since that I met her. I can tell you that I never look at a red light the same way, and I've shared, I hope you're going to mention that tonight, Woodrie, but I've shared that tool with so many people, which has been super helpful for others. And I'm really excited for Woodrie to be able to present tonight. So thank you, Woodrie, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that you can take over.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Rianne. It's such a pleasure to be here with everyone. It's always nice to see new faces and meet some new folks. So thank you for having me. Yeah, I always appreciate what Thread provides our community through Parent Talk. It's such a great resource. And as a parent myself, so I have a 7-year-old daughter. And so I'm very familiar with the throes of parenting. And we get to add the challenge of a pandemic on top of it. So we'll talk a little bit about that tonight, and thanks for joining. So let me share my screen. Just give me one moment while we get all situated and set up, and we'll be good to go there. And let's see here, okay. One more moment if you don't mind. There's that fabulous chat window. Okay, great. So I'm all situated. We're good to go. So we are going to chat a little bit about strengthening ourselves and how parental self-care is really the root of that parental resilience that we as parents have to draw on and call on every day. So that's really what I wanted to chat about, how to deal with that moment to moment, right? We've got the bigger sense of that, but moment to moment, how to deal with that and how self-care links to that. So that's what we'll be chatting about tonight. So what I always like to do to start off is, there we go. Okay, what I always like to do to start off is I always love to start with a very short sit. And what I mean by that is some kind of short breathing exercise to kind of bring us here to this moment. A lot of us might have been running from something before, getting the kids to bed, getting food on the table, all these different things. And I'd like to kind of shift us from that busy, harried, sometimes moments of the day, or maybe a joyful moment, and just in whatever we came to this moment with, I'd like to shift us into being in this moment. And so we can do that through just some very simple breathing exercises. For some of you who might have had some meditation or mindfulness experience, you'll recognize some similarities to this. However, I really like to call this a breathing exercise and not a formal meditation or mindfulness training, because there are some subtleties and nuances with meditation and mindfulness that I really like to say we need a little bit more time and space for. And if this interests you or you see anything and say, oh, that was really helpful, I would highly encourage you to check out some mindfulness and meditation, because a lot of the subtleties that you'll find with this short breathing exercises are very similar. So what I invite you to do, if you'd like, is you can find yourself in the seat that you're on, and you can put your feet flat on the floor. And that just kind of grounds us and brings us right into this moment. And if you have any high heels on and you happen to be at home and you have some bunny slippers or something easy, I would recommend putting those feet flat on the floor if you have that opportunity. And if you don't have that opportunity, that's fine too. Everything will be just fine. But feet flat on the floor if you can. Knees about hip distance apart. And then hands. I always get asked, what do we do with hands? Well, you have a lot of options, right? For me, I really like to just put one hand on top of the other and put them in my lap, very simply. Some people choose to put both hands straight down on the top of their thighs, and some people like to keep their hands up on the top of their thighs. And if you kind of play with your lap, you'll notice ever so slightly it will change the shift in your shoulders, and it'll change those shoulders very slightly. And once you're in that position, maybe you want to do a little shoulder roll if that feels good, a little shoulder shrug, something. Maybe release some of the tension in the neck. Whatever feels good to you. That's really about whatever feels good to you. There's no right or wrong to it. And then once you're in your seat, my recommendation is to try to find that middle spot. Sometimes what I do in my chair is I'll come forward just a hair, just give my back a little bit of room between myself and the backrest of it, so I'm not really slumping in my chair. Rather, I'm kind of finding that middle ground so that I have some alertness in my body. And what that does is it kind of shifts my focus, and it'll help me focus on my present moment a little bit more. But again, if for any reason you have any shoulder pain or neck pain or back pain and you want to relax back into the chair, that's just fine too. So once we're there, if you want, you can choose to close your eyes. Some people choose to open them. And if you do keep them open, my recommendation is to find a spot on the floor about 2 to 3 feet right in front of your knees, so that you can just focus on a single spot and your eyes aren't changing their focus. That's the concept, is to just ease the eyes right down to a single point of focus. And once we're in that position, we're just going to breathe, just really, really easily. We don't have to change the breath. You can just let it be. We might notice if it's deep or shallow. We might notice if we're breathing in the upper part of our chest or down in our bellies like babies breathe. We might notice that when we breathe in through the nose, our nostrils will flare ever so slightly. And on the exhale, the shoulders will drop down and the chest will collapse just a little bit, waiting for that next inhale. And if our mind has a thought, we can just ever so slightly bring it back to one of our anchor points that we have in our body. Our feet solid, rooted on the earth. Our sit bones comfortable, sitting in a chair. Our breath always there. In and out. And when you're ready, I invite you to wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes and welcome yourself back. One of the reasons why I love that breathing exercise as a parent is it doesn't take very long. And you can do it anywhere. You can even do it standing. I've done it many times in many grocery store lines, which is fabulous. So you can do it really anywhere. And it's just so simple. We always have access to our breath. And it's amazing how it can kind of shift. Sometimes it will bring up something that maybe we don't like. Maybe it'll bring up a tension in the shoulder, or we are more aware of maybe some tension in the neck or something like that. Or maybe it'll bring up a little bit of anxiety. And that's okay too. Everything's invited. There's nothing that's not invited in that space. And then likewise, maybe it'll bring some ease, and maybe it would bring some joy of just, oh, there's that exhale. A lot of times we focus so much on the inhale that we don't get to focus on the exhale. So anyway, it's a nice breathing exercise. So what are we going to talk about tonight? So there's so much. I'm so excited. One of the things I really want to deep dive into is self-care and resilience. I want to provide you guys some definitions of what we mean by those. And then I want to provide you the link, how those two are linked and how we see that link as parents between self-care and resilience. Then I want to talk about what I call magic mini moments. All right. And these are that concept of how there's thousands of moments in our day. And it's really the magic of those mini micro moments that make up resilience for us, and how to seek out our wins in those moments. I want to make sure we connect them to that. And then I want to make sure we have some time for practice and play. So we'll talk about some different tools that can nourish us. And we'll also do some exercises on how to support ourselves a little bit deeper as parents. How does that sound? Some nodding heads? Okay, good. All right. So when I think of self-care, I really see self-care as really being a root of resilience. And what I mean by that is resilience is made up of all of us, and when we meet a challenge and when we rise to that challenge. And in order to kind of rise to that challenge in our moment, what we need to be able to meet it with is some sort of energy and some sort of capacity for us to meet the challenge. And self-care is part of what gives us that capacity. It gives us the capacity and the strength and the energy to meet whatever challenge is in the moment. And as parents, I have a question for you guys. So if you don't mind in the chat, what I'd love to hear from you is how many children you have and what their ages are, so that we get an idea of what kind of resilient homes we have and what kind of resilient parents we are to the ages of the children that we have. As I already mentioned, I have one. She's 7 years old. And so I've kind of gone through that 0 to 7 journey. And I'd be really curious what your guys's are, so that I can see that we can connect in a little bit of that. So if you have an opportunity to type that in the chat window, that's beautiful. Yay! Rian, your daughter, 1 year old, 20 days. Oh, it's fabulous. Yay. Yeah, excellent. Oh, Emma, age 8, Olive, age 5. Beautiful, excellent. Yeah, lovely, lovely. Excellent. Okay. So we see some different ages. So we've got baby, kind of the mid-age, that school age time, which is lovely. My daughter's 7, also school age. Anybody with teens? Just curious. Anybody with, oh, you've got teens. Okay, Tamara. Okay, very good, very good, very good. Okay, lovely. Okay, so then as we go through this journey as parents, right, a lot of times it always feels like there's just something new right around the corner. Just as soon as we get comfortable and we're like, oh, we've got this all figured out, something new happens, right? It's just out of the blue. And so I find that we're constantly in this interesting state as parents, to me, where we're constantly stepping into a little bit of a state of unknown. And I think when we look at our world and where we are right now, certainly with COVID, right? And certainly with all the challenges associated with that, we are constantly finding ourselves in that space where we're stepping into a lot of unknowns. And so as parents, how do we do that? And how do we continue to be strong, stable, and steady, which is really what our families need during this time? And the root of that for us is always self-care. It always comes back to us as individuals, how we can support ourselves, both individually, and then how we can draw on our support around us so that we're like that strong, steady oak tree with deep, thick roots, right? So self-care, and why it's such a big root of resilience, is, as I was mentioning before, it really provides that energy and it nourishes us. Self-care is our ability to nourish ourselves. At the base root, self-care is really just the base tending to our needs. It's just how we tend to ourselves, how we tend to our basic needs. And it's the foundation for really building awareness, because when I'm taking good care of myself and I realize the need to take good care of myself, there's an awareness that comes with that. There's an awareness of, oh, I need to tend to myself. Oh, I'm feeling really agitated right now. I'm feeling really angry and I'm really short with my daughter and I'm not being very patient. Oh, I need to tend to myself, right? And then how do I figure that out? How do I take the step to support myself in a deeper way? And like I said, to also call on those resources and pull those resources to help me support myself as well, so that it's not more on my shoulders. I'm actually pulling on the resources around me to support myself. And then the other thing that I really love about self-care is it really expands over time. So you'll start to see, and this is one of the joys that I find with self-care, is that when we continuously practice it over time, we actually find that it expands and it starts to take on a life all of its own. And what I mean by that is that when I start practicing self-care at the beginning, it might feel kind of awkward and kind of like, oh gosh, what am I going to do with my afternoon? I'll give you a good example of this. One of my, a woman that I know was starting to take off some Friday afternoons with her to spend with her family. She had some flexibility in her schedule to take off a couple extra hours in the afternoons on Fridays. And she called me up and she said, Woodrie, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know what to do with this extra time I have. Has anybody ever had that? I'd be really curious if you can add in the chat window. Have you ever had so much time that you had this big space of time and then you didn't know what to do with it? If you can type yes, that would be great. I see some shaking heads. That's great. Yes. So that's something very familiar to all of us. All right. We get going so fast and we're so busy that it feels a little bit uncomfortable and odd when we have a moment all to ourselves. And so I would just invite you to embrace that awkward, uncomfortable feeling. And it's usually just the beginning of an opportunity to step into ourselves in a deeper way. And that uncomfortableness is very normal and natural. So as we continue to practice it though, what we'll find is that self-care can expand out and we start to say, oh, I can start tending to myself in this way as well. Oh, I can start taking care of myself in this way too, because all of a sudden it's in our awareness. Yeah. Thank you for those yeses. I see those. Yeah, that's great. Okay. So great. So why do we practice self-care? We practice self-care for a lot of reasons. One of them is it's healthy for us and it's healthy for those around us. It helps us to identify our limits and really articulate our needs for a boundary. That's one of the big reasons why we start practicing self-care. And it also helps us with transition and helps us connect in deeper with other people. One of the biggest reasons why I practice self-care as a parent is because it actually models for my daughter a different way of being. It models for her that when mommy's upset or mommy needs a moment, that my response is to go and take care of myself. And that's a beautiful gift that I want to give her. That's a beautiful gift. And so I'll give you a good example of this. This was when she was probably 2 years old. So I was kind of in the thick of it, you know, where you're just getting out of, I think we're, oh gosh, I can tell my daughter's 7 because I'm not thinking about diapers anymore, you know, but you know, you're still in the diaper stage, potty training stage, and all this craziness. And I remember she was just screaming and just wanting me to stay because I wanted to go on a run. And if I was going to be really honest about it, it was more like a walk, partial jog, but it was me getting out of the house. And she was just screaming. And I remember I got down on my knees and I said, hi, baby, I know you're going to miss mama. I love you, baby. And mama's going to go do this because it makes mommy feel really good in my body. And then I got up while she was still screaming and I took off and I took care of myself. And that is so valuable. That is so valuable to teach our children that it's okay to take care of ourselves. So that's something that I would invite you as a parent to really vocalize, and feel free to vocalize that, because I think it's a strength and it's an honoring. Do you guys have any questions? Oh, let's see here. I try to do too many things in the free time and then I get overwhelmed. Yeah. So what I'd love for you guys to do now is we have a few moments. I'd love you to take a moment. If everybody has a pen and paper, that would be great if you have a pen and paper. And if you don't, you happen to be on some kind of device. My guess is you're on a cell phone or maybe you're on a laptop. So you have some access to a Word document or some kind of notes. So if you don't have a pen and paper, no worries. But my recommendation, and right now I invite you to just take a few moments to journal for yourself about the different types of ways you support your own self-care. I'd love you to make a list for those of you who work in the home and those of you who work out of the home. If you can separate those out, perhaps if you work in the home, how you do self-care during the day and how you do self-care at night when the kids are asleep. And if you go outside of the home for work or something like that, perhaps how you do self-care at home and how you do self-care at the office. So you can start to see how you integrate that self-care and where some gaps are. And then once you do that first piece, we'll step into the second piece, which is to, after you've done that list of how many different ways you support self-care, is how often you do them. And sometimes people ask me, they say, so Woodrie, how do I know if this falls in self-care? What is self-care? And what I oftentimes will tell folks is self-care is anything that makes you feel fed. What I mean by that is it can be a walk, it can be dance, it can be a breathing exercise, it can be a hobby, it can be art, it can be anything that makes you feel fed and good, right? Where you feel energized or relaxed and renewed. That's self-care. So I put some questions in the very bottom that can kind of help trigger that too. What activities or events will make you feel good? Anything that makes you feel really good and tended to is self-care. Falls in that category. And if you have any questions or anything, feel free to type in the chat bar and I'll try to respond. And I'll give everybody about 3 more minutes to do this exercise. So I'll give everybody about another 30 seconds to wrap up. And for those of you who are done, if you'd like to share a way that you support self-care for yourself, I'd love to see it in the chat. Maybe perhaps one of your favorite ways to support self-care as a parent. I'd love to see that if you have any ideas. Oh, yeah, beautiful. Tamara, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, self-care pauses, big time. Taking some breaks, supporting the self. A lot of it's just reminding ourselves that we need to tend to ourselves, those little reminders. I'm a big Post-it note person. In fact, when my daughter was young, I did this big time to motivate myself and give myself inspiration. But I even have them now. I've always kept little notes throughout the house. And it's a way that I remind myself of what I want to focus on. And so I'll give you examples. Like right now, if you open up my bathroom cabinet, on the inside I have 2 little notes to myself of breathe. And then on the other one, when I open up my tea cabinet and I have my tea, there's my little note reminding myself to trust myself or whatever it is for the day that I'm focusing on. And then when I go into the office, I have my little notes here on the side. I could show you my picture, you know, and all those little reminders kind of help me support myself throughout my day. So I'm a big person on Post-it notes. I use those fabulous index cards with lots of fun colors, and I let my daughter draw on them as well. So yeah, good. Excellent. Okay. Exercise in the park. Love that, Martha. Yeah. Exercise every day. Isn't that lovely? Movement for our bodies. So brilliant. Yes. 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 And stretching. Yes. Stretching. Very good. Oh, vocal and making silly noises. Yeah. Oh, how fun. I love that. I love that. That's lovely. Excellent. Great work. Okay. So good work. Okay. So what I'd like to chat a little bit now is a little bit more on resilience. And I'd like to use a definition of resilience. So the definition that we're going to use for this purposes of this presentation is that resilience is really the power to be energized and elevated by disruption. And I'm taking this definition, so I've done a fair amount of research and specifically studying on resilience. And this has always been my favorite definition because it really points to the energetic component of being energized and elevated through disruption. And this definition comes from both Jennifer Eggers and Cynthia Barlow from their book Resilience. It's not about bouncing back. And I really love their definition to this. So for the purposes of today, let's use that in the back of our minds of to be energized and elevated by disruption. So when we look at resilience in that way, I kind of see resilience in parenting in particular is these little micro moments that add up to the bigger moments. So parenting oftentimes can feel like we're going, we're stopped. We're going, we're stopped. We're going, we're stopped. We have all these little interruptions throughout our day, if you will, that really don't have to be seen as interruptions. You know, my daughter will come in the office a bazillion different times, especially working from home. And she will come in and I'll be heads down and it's really hard for me to pull away, right? Like when I'm preparing this for a presentation, oh, it's really hard for me. And she knows when I have my door shut, it is, but sometimes her exuberance just comes right through, right? And if I can meet that, and if it's not happening every moment, right? But if I can meet that, I can meet the magic in that moment. And I can use that interruption as an opportunity to connect in and relax my body and enjoy her exuberance, right? Like I can enjoy that and I can take that opportunity. And so I see resilience in many ways as the 1,000 small moments that build up to that moment where we have the patience, where we have the pause, where we have, and we need to meet that moment with deep, deep support. And how we do that is by tending to all of those little moments, right? When we tend to the little moments, the big moments take care of themselves, because all of our practice is in the small moments. Does that make sense? So for me, resilience is really built in those small, mini moments. If I'm tending to that well, the big stuff will happen on its own, because I will be ready for it. Because I will be tending to myself, and I will be building my reserves consistently over time. It's not the big stuff. It's never really the big stuff. We see the big moments, right? We see the big moments and we say, oh, wow, that person responded this way. But what we don't see a lot of times is the 1,000 moments leading up to that big moment that felt like a really big moment, but it was just another moment for that person. Because they'd been doing those micro steps. They've been doing and practicing that the whole time to lead to that one moment so that they could meet it. Resilience is all about meeting that moment. And as parents, we're called on this daily, hourly, sometimes within the minute. You know, I mean, we're just constantly pushed and pushed and pushed. And resilience is about that capacity. How do we build our capacity to support ourselves? And that's the beautiful thing about resilience, right? Is resilience is learned. It's a learned skill. It's something we can teach ourselves by tending to our needs through self-care, by building those reserves time and time again. And it's also something we earn. And what I mean by that is the reality of resilience is we can't have resilience without challenge. There's nothing to be resilient to. So it's both a learned skill and it's also earned through the challenges that we're meeting. So it's both. So how do we expand that capacity, right? How do we expand our capacity as parents? What do we do and how can we tend to ourselves? Well, a couple things that are becoming really, really important with resilience is one of them is just acknowledging that new normal, right? Whatever it is. And no matter how challenging the reality is that we're facing as parents, there's a new normal to it, right? When we have a young child, a brand new baby newborn, our sleep schedules will never be the same again. Not for a long time. Rianne, I see that look like never? Okay, not never. Eventually they will. Eventually you'll get sleep. It's all good. But for a while, we won't. And there's some acceptance with that, right? When we come to that acceptance, one, it's a lot easier when we accept reality, because then we can actually change things around it. We can implement sleep schedules, and we can implement, time for ourselves to take a nap, or we can implement different things that support us in accepting that reality. And the other thing with that is we always know it'll change. And Jennifer Eggers and Cynthia Barlow also mentioned, they call it a staunch acceptance. To me, it's the same concept. Just acknowledging that allows us to step into the next space. It allows us to deal with the reality of our moment. So I remember very distinctly when my daughter was born. After my daughter was born, my husband and I were on this walk outside, and I think he was carrying her. And I remember we had this moment of recognition where we were both talking about how there was a part of us that, as joyful as we were being new parents, there was also a part of us that was just kind of grieving just the two of us in a weird way, right? There was this grieving and this loss, because it was very real, the loss of just two becoming three. There was joy in it, but there was also a distinct loss of the flexibility that's gone, right? And all of those things. But once we did that, and once we articulated it, it was magic. Like it just helped us say, yeah, it was almost like an ending, and we almost honored that process rather than avoiding it, right? So I sometimes think that that's really valuable, is to just really step into that acknowledgement. And then the other thing is just the compassion with ourselves, compassion with others, and very gently embracing our mistakes. I think as parents, it is not possible to be a parent without making a bazillion mistakes, right? We're going to, and it's okay. And I think a lot of times it's what gives us the capacity to connect to our children with them too, right? Just like our children, we weren't born parents. I kind of feel like we grow into the role, right? I feel like I'm still growing. My daughter's 7, so I'm still growing to my role as a parent. But we grow, and part of that growth is those mistakes. So learning how to be really self-compassionate in that process. And it's actually a deep strength, right? Because when we're really deeply self-compassionate with ourselves, when we make a mistake, like maybe I got angry, or maybe I was upset, maybe I was impatient and I snapped, it happened, and then I own that and I say, oh, I was upset. Why did I do? Oh, I was really stressed out today. I was really stressed out and I didn't have time to tend to myself. And because of that, oh, maybe I wasn't able to do this, and I can see easier. But then more importantly, once I connect into that and I'm gentle with myself in that process, right? Deep, gentle support for myself when I'm going through that. Then when I see somebody else, a neighbor, a friend, a stranger going through a difficult moment with their child, I can say, oh, I see you. I see that because I relate to that. It develops our humility and our humanity. So we actually grow our connections with others, right? We're no longer separating ourselves out because we accept and we see us in others. So that's the beauty of compassion. And it really is a deep connector for us. And then finally, the other way to really expand our capacity, right, for caring for ourselves and others is finding support. This one cannot be overstated. I'm a really big, firm believer in this. And thank goodness for really great organizations such as Thread, that really are out there to provide parent support, education, resources, community connection. All of those things are so huge for us as parents, so huge for our family units to be connected with other families as we travel this journey together. So find those new relationships, find those friends, learn new things. All of those things are ways to support ourselves as we go through the journey. So, yeah. Okay. All right, so I'd like to wrap up with a few tools that nourish us and some different ideas here. I think, I do have the stoplights in there. So there's that stoplights comment from Rianne. Okay, so here's some really good tools that can nourish you as a parent, right? Or as a caregiver or provider. So tools that nourish you, what I oftentimes will say is these are things that help us connect into the moment. Right? Connect us deeply to the moment. And there's this overlying focus on the how more than the what. Let me explain what I mean by that. So I have a list of things to do. All right, I can show you one there. I can show you many because I keep many. And my list of things to do is long. And I can tick those things off that list, and I can plow through them like nobody else. I can go through my list and I can be on it. And during that time, my dog can be barking, my daughter can be pulling on my leg, my mom can be calling me on the phone, and I can be doing all these things and I can still get through my list, but I will have completely missed the enjoyment, the connection with anyone and everyone in that moment with me. Does that make sense? Can you guys type yes on that one? Yeah. So that's me in the moment, but I'm not with the moment. I'm not experiencing the moment. There's a difference. Now, I can have my list and realize that there's a reality that I'm not going to get to everything on that thing. I'm just not. And I can prioritize and I can focus and I can do things like that. And then I can say, Mom, I'd really love to talk to you right now, but I'm making dinner and I'm going to have to call you back so I can really focus and be with you. I can give my dog some food or whatever he needs in the moment. And I can sit down and I can connect to my daughter and I can look at her and say, baby, do you want to come up here and help Mama with some dinner? And we can do that together. And I can shift my connection with that moment. That's a focus on the how, not the what. That's what I mean by that. And so there's some sample practices to support that, right? These are mindfulness kind of based practices, but there's also practices that aren't really mindfulness based focused. But a lot of these pull in a lot of mindfulness. So I really love single tasking, and this is really big. Like I was explaining before, that was a multitasking experience. And there's some really great research on multitasking, by the way, which is fascinating if you want to get into it. And if anybody's interested, you can email me because I'm totally into it. But multitasking is fascinating because there's actually no such thing as multitasking. And what actually happens is we're actually what's called task switching. And this is really challenging for me as a mother, because mothers and females are oftentimes renowned, and some research has been done on saying that mothers can multitask better. Like it's more in our field of thought, but when you really dive into it, like I said, multitasking is really not feasible. So that shifted my perspective on that. So with that in mind, multitasking actually can be challenging for us in multiple ways. Whereas if you single task and focus on one thing at a time, you're actually releasing stress in your body and actually making things easier for yourself. It releases that cognitive load, that mind load on you. So whenever we have the ability to single task, I always recommend that. The other thing too, and I learned this many, many years ago at a meditation retreat, and there was this woman there, and she was just a matriarch. You could just tell she had multiple children. I think she had 4 or 5 children. And she was just centered in a way that you just know you meet those people that are kind of magical. And you're like, oh my gosh, she has something figured out. And that was who this woman was for me. And I didn't even have kids at the time. And I remember very distinctly writing down in my journal, like, do not forget this. And she had this practice. She said when all of her chaos was going on in her home, she took one candle and she put it in front of her dishes, like on her countertop, and she did her dishes with her candle lit, and she did them slowly and with deep appreciation. And she would wash her dishes and think about how this dish had food on it for her children, and how these dishes every day in and out would feed her family. That's a massively different way of experiencing dishwashing. So I love that practice. I do it on occasion, and I just love it. It's just a gift of a practice. The other thing is the savoring stoplights. So Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh actually wrote about this in one of his books. I think it was on being with peace. I'm not sure, but he's written about this many times. And he really recommended looking and using your stoplights to relax yourself. So when you go to a stoplight, usually we're thinking about the next thing, or we're thinking about the meeting that we have to go to, or the next thing that we have to do. Or there's all this chaos in the back of the car if we're saying, Tommy, don't hit Sally, or Sally, don't hit Tommy. All of this chaos can be abounding. Or we can just take that moment, the chaos that's all around us, and we can just breathe right through it. And we can take that stoplight to just say the same thing that we did before, just a very short breathing exercise. Where's my breath right now? How's my shoulder? Am I sitting up straight? We can use that stoplight to connect in. And remember, everything's invited. Do you remember that? At the beginning, we said that with that breathing exercise. Everything is invited. There's nothing that's not invited. Everything's invited. So no matter what's going around us in our car, we can still be here. And we can just connect in and just very simply ask ourselves. The only thing is don't close your eyes. And then you can enjoy many moments throughout the day. So those are some good examples of tools that nourish. Okay. So these are tools that support. These are some fun ones. So these are things that can help support us. And what I love about these are care for ourselves and also our wee ones, right? Like our littles. And these are tools that help create some fun and help support us with our needs. And they remind us of our intent and purpose. So just some examples of these are, one of them that I love is when my daughter was really young, I used to go to the library, the Lusac library, and I would go and get their bags of books. They have these fabulous bags of books that you can get. And I would go and get these bags of books, and I would hide them so that she didn't have access to them right away. And whenever I needed a shower, whenever Mama needed a shower, which seemed like such a luxury sometimes in the early throes of parenting. You know, I would go and I would take 2 or 3 of those books and I would go and hide them in the house. And it was great when she was around 2.5 to 3 years old, because she was curious and she wanted to play hide and seek with things. She loved the search game, but she was old enough to come and ask me questions. Like, she couldn't find it, so she'd get frustrated, which was exactly what I wanted. I didn't want to be in a shower for 5 or 10 minutes without knowing where my daughter was in the house. So I'd say, come back and ask mommy and I'll give you a hint. And she'd come back and she'd run in, mommy, where is it? You know, and so I'd be able to actually take care of myself while we played this beautiful game. And it was all for free because of the library, right? Which was lovely. So you can play with this with stickers. You can play with this with old toys that maybe you rotated out. It's just, it's a gem of a practice. And I also really love this one. Whenever I got really tired, I would go and say, mama needs a nap, baby. Can mama be baby? Can I be baby today? You know, and this could be the same thing. Daddy can be baby, you know, grandma can be baby, whoever the caregiver is can be baby. And when they're little, they get so excited to tuck you in and give you a little stuffy. And when they get a little older, they may even read you a book. I mean, it's just a joy, total joy. So it's like, oh, and even if you just get 1 minute, it's amazing what you can do with 1 minute as a parent, right? It's amazing what we can do with a minute. So those are some fun things. One of my love poems, we really teach in our family that all feelings are welcome feelings. And so when my daughter was young, we used to have this beautiful practice, and I wrote it to her many years ago. And I would say, I love you when you're angry, and I make a really angry face. I'd say, I love you when you're sad, and we do sad faces. And I love you when you're happy, and we do smiles. And I love you when you're silly. And then I'd tickle her. And then I love you all the time, right? So if she was in a bad mood or an angry mood or a sad mood, I love those really simple vocalizations that I can say as a parent to her that both validate for me that this moment is okay, and also validate for her that this moment is okay. So I love those. And then the final one that I would give is, I really love this, and this is actually something I've been doing more recently with her a lot. Actually, we started this probably about a year ago, is, you know, mama gets angry. Mama has timeouts, daddy has timeouts. That's okay. We're parents, right? It's totally okay. And so one of the things that we'll utilize in our home is we'll model what we do when we feel those feelings. So when mama feels angry, this is what I do. I go and get a big glass of water because I like to flush some of that out. And I go and do something that makes me happy. And what does mama do that makes her happy? And my daughter knows. I go and turn on music. That makes me happy. So I've just modeled for her 2 things that I've articulated in the process that I'm having a challenge. Do you see that? Do you see the beauty in that? There's this ownership that I'm having a challenge, and then I'm going to go tend to myself, right? I'm modeling the whole process. It's beautiful. It helps me and it helps our family. And what's great is when daddy walks in the door and he hears mama music, he knows exactly what's up. So he knows exactly when we need to set a boundary in our home. So yeah, so there's some good examples there. Okay, so we are wrapping up and we're coming close to the end. I'd love to end on finding and celebrating our wins. So this is really big. One of the things that I find as a parent and trying to navigate this crazy journey that is parenting sometimes is just taking a moment to enjoy the moment, right? And to really celebrate it. We've gotten used to in our family saying, oh, this is a golden moment. I don't remember where we picked that up. I think it was from some beautiful book somewhere. Maybe you guys know. But finding and celebrating that moment. So when we're in a really good moment, we feel that joy. When we feel that excitement, claim it, right? Come in and claim that moment. Call it out, you know, have a party around it. Like really bring it forth. And what is a win? So a win is anything that brings laughter, joy, gratitude, and appreciation. And the thing to really understand about wins is that wins arise, they have the tendency to arise when our needs are met. I'm going to say that again. Wins have the tendency to arise when our needs are met. This gets back to that self-care piece, right? Okay. So what I'd love us to do next is just do, as we end up here, we'll take a few moments to identify some different wins for you and your family. I'd love to see what some of those are. So we're going to do 2 short exercises again, just kind of a part 1 and a part 2. I'd love you to just write out the activities of your typical day. And when you write out those activities of your day, if you reflect on kind of your standard day, I'd love to see where you find some of those wins. What wins do you usually find? You know, and how have they changed? As for those of you who have teenagers, I'd love you to kind of maybe even reflect on how they've changed over the years and where you celebrate those, and were they celebrated and acknowledged, and if so, how were they? And then after you get done with that first piece, I want you to consider your weekly wins and see if you see any themes or things along those lines. And if you have any questions about what a win is, I have some notes on the very bottom there that can be beneficial. It's in essence anything that sparks joy for you, anything that brings a smile to your face. And I'll give you guys about 4 minutes for this one, so we can make sure we wrap up on time. I'm gonna go take care of my self-care and grab a little bit more water. So I'm gonna stop my video for 1 moment while you guys are wrapping this up. Okay, I'll be right back. I'll give everybody just about 1 more minute on this as we're wrapping up near the end of the hour. And if you're done a little bit early and wish to share anything on the wins, feel free to add it in the chat box. Love to see what some of your family wins are. Martha, thank you. Spending time with the family and going on hikes. Beautiful. Great. Great. Well, you guys, that hour went really, really fast. I think as we end up wrapping here, I want to make sure we have just a little bit of time for some Q&A if you guys have anything. And that is really the end of our conversation about self-care and resilience. It was such a joy connecting with you guys. A couple things, I don't know, Rianne, would you like me to share about the guide? Okay, so one of the things that we went ahead and put together for you, my team with the integration group, we put together a self-care guide for parents that Rianne will be sending out to you guys. So hopefully that'll be helpful. It has some of these fun exercises in there for you to reference in the future, and some other fun ones for ages all the way, babies all the way up. So hopefully that'll be something fun for you to take away. And if you have any questions, I'm really easy to find. My name is Woodrie. I'm probably one of the only Woodries in the US. So it's pretty easy to find me, but I'm with the integration group, and thanks so much. And Rianne, I'll turn it over to you.
Wow, Woodrie, you've done it again. Inspiration, fill my cup every time. Thank you so much for this. Even as every time that I do parent talks, I just learn so much, especially as being a new mom. And for Janet and Tamara, Martha and Christina, for all the comments that you guys shared in the chat box were really encouraging. And it's great to hear just what you as moms are doing, as you as professionals are doing. And I'm just really thankful for this evening. So thank you to everybody for that. We do have the self-care guide for parents, and I was able to look over it, and it is so amazing. So I'm so excited to share it with all of you guys. That'll come tomorrow. I'm actually going to email a survey out to everybody tomorrow. So I'll send an email, and in that will come the self-care guide for parents, as well as a little survey on tonight. And if you've never attended Parent Talk before, typically we do a little raffle for some materials, but I have 5 packs of materials. So each of you guys are going to get one, including Woodrie, which is very exciting. So in that, these are all great books that I think will be very beneficial from this session, as well as just to play and be with your kids with. So the first is the Pajama Zoo Parade, which is a fun children's book. I love, even though Mother Hia is only one, it's got really amazing pictures. So this will come in the mail to you guys, along with a book called Pause. It talks about the power of parenting and living in calm and connection. It's by Alice Hanscom, who lives here in Alaska, which is great. And also for me, a big self-care piece is cooking and baking. So we got everybody cookbooks for the young chef. So you guys will be able to do some cookings with it. These are awesome recipes and cooking opportunities that you can have with your kids, whether they're childcare kids or your own kids. So I'll be sending you guys each a little package with a little check-in note, share some love, because I miss seeing you all in person. I was just telling Christina how much I miss being able to run into her in the office. Same with you and Janet and Martha. Missing you guys in training, and Tamara, of course. I miss seeing you guys. So one of my self-care things is always being able to like connect on Teams or on Zoom and just hear how everyone's doing. So tonight was very filling. I hope tonight was great for you guys as well. And we'll be in touch next month, excuse me. Woodrie, I'm actually going to start sharing my screen if you don't mind. Stopping yours. Thank you. I'm just going to share the next session. We actually are doing, the next session is November 8th. Let me share my screen quick. So the next session is on November 12th, and the session is called Teen Talk. So we have Tammy Willis from Awake coming to talk about how to parent and connect with teens, preteens and teens. So if you have preteens or teens, Martha, I know you have a 16-year-old. This one might be helpful for you and your relationship with her too. They came, Tamara, you too with a teenager. And if any of your friends and family, this session we had last year and was just amazing. The responses that people had were like, this is just techniques and strategies and encouragement, gave some understanding a little bit in the brain of a teen, and just ways to connect with them. So registration for that will open up next week. So feel free to check out our website, share it around with everybody, and you can register. And we're just going to continue this whole series this year. Will all be via Zoom, which is actually really exciting because we've got some great presenters from around the state. We can have participants around the state, which is also really exciting. So it is 7 o'clock. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Woodrie, so much for sharing your knowledge and for everything. It was so great to see everybody this week. So take care,
Nice
everyone.
to you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, we'll see you all later.
Bye.
Bye.